Imagine this. A brutal blizzard hits the city 2 days before Christmas. Streets empty, snow so thick you can barely see your hand in front of you. But what if, in that frozen silence, one man's life was about to change forever? Stay with me. Emotion Waves brings you a story that will melt your heart. The snow was falling so thick that evening that the streetlights seemed to glow with halos in the white darkness. It was 2 days before Christmas, and the city had been caught off guard by a blizzard that had swept in faster than anyone had predicted. The streets were already covered with several inches of fresh snow, and the wind whipped it into swirling patterns that made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead. Marcus Callahan stepped out of his office building into the storm, pulling his dark overcoat tighter against the cold. He was 36 years old, with dark hair styled carefully back, and the kind of tailored suit that spoke of success and careful attention to detail. As the CEO of Callahan Industries, a technology company his father had founded, and he'd expanded into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, Marcus was used to being in control. He planned everything, anticipated problems, and solved them with efficiency. But he hadn't planned for this blizzard. His driver had called an hour ago to say the roads were becoming impassable, and Marcus had made the decision to walk the 8 blocks to his downtown apartment rather than wait. He'd grown up in this city, walked these streets as a child. A little snow wouldn't stop him. The Range Rover parked at the curb belonged to one of his executives who'd wisely left it here and taken a taxi home earlier. Marcus passed it without a second glance, his dress shoes crunching in the fresh snow as he began walking down the empty street. Most businesses had closed early, and the few people who'd been out had already hurried home. The city felt abandoned, wrapped in white silence, broken only by the wind. He'd walked maybe 2 blocks when he saw him. At first, he was just a small shape on the stone steps, leading up to an old brownstone building. Marcus might have walked right past, assuming it was just a bundle of discarded clothes or bags someone had left behind. But then the shape moved, and he realized with a shock that it was a child. A little boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, sat alone on the snow-covered steps. He wore a blue coat that was too thin for weather like this, and his blonde hair stuck out from under a wool hat that had slipped sideways. His small feet in worn gray boots swung slightly above the ground, and he stared straight ahead with an expression far too serious for such a young face. Marcus stopped, his business mind immediately trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A child alone in a blizzard in the middle of the city? Where were his parents? Why was he sitting here? He approached slowly, not wanting to frighten him. "Hello," he called out gently, raising his voice to be heard over the wind. "Are you all right?" The little boy turned to look at him, and Marcus saw that his cheeks were red from the cold, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. But he didn't look frightened of him. Instead, he studied Marcus's face with an intensity that was almost unsettling. "Are you Marcus Callahan?" he asked, his small voice clear despite the storm. Marcus felt his heart skip. "Yes, I am. How do you know my name?" "My mom showed me your picture," the boy said. "She said if I saw you, I should tell you we need help. She said, you're the only one who can help us. And here's where everything changes. Listen close. Emotion Waves is about to take you somewhere unforgettable." Marcus crouched down so he was at the boy's eye level, snow immediately soaking into the knees of his expensive trousers. "Where's your mother, buddy?" The little boy's lower lip trembled. "She's at home. She's sick. She sent me to find you because she said you'd be leaving your building around now. She said you always leave at 6:30 on Wednesdays." A chill ran down Marcus's spine that had nothing to do with the cold. "How does your mother know when I leave my building?" "She used to work there," the boy said simply, "before she got sick." Marcus's mind was racing. He employed nearly 300 people in that building alone. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Leo," the boy said. "Leo Foster." Foster. The name sparked something in Marcus's memory, but he couldn't quite grasp it. "And your mother's name?" "Amanda Foster," Leo said. "She was your secretary before Miss Helen." And suddenly Marcus remembered. Amanda Foster had been his executive assistant 3 years ago, a quiet woman in her late 22nd who'd been efficient and professional. She'd left rather suddenly, giving only 2 weeks' notice, saying something about family obligations, needing to relocate. He'd been disappointed to lose her, but had respected her decision and hired Helen to replace her. "I remember your mother," Marcus said carefully. "But Leo, why did she send you out in this storm to find me? Why didn't she just call?" Leo's eyes filled with tears that spilled over onto his cold cheeks. Because she's too proud to ask for help on the phone. She said she needed to see you in person, but she's too sick to leave the apartment, so she sent me to find you and bring you back. She said," Leo paused, wiping his eyes with small mittened hands. "She said she was sorry for asking, but we don't have anyone else." Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Whatever Amanda Foster needed, it had to be serious for her to send her young son out into a blizzard to find him. "Where do you live, Leo?" he asked. 4 blocks that way." Leo pointed down the street. "Mom said you'd pass right by our building if you were walking home like you usually do." Marcus made a decision. "Can you take me there? To your mother?" Leo nodded and stood up from the steps, wobbling slightly. Marcus realized he must have been sitting there for a while, waiting in the cold. He took off his overcoat and wrapped it around the boy's small shoulders. It swallowed him completely, but at least it was warm. "Come on," he said, offering his hand. "Let's go see your mom." Leo's small hand slipped into his, trusting and cold, even through the mittens. They walked together down the snowy street, Marcus adjusting his stride to match the boy's shorter steps. The wind had picked up, visibility getting worse. Marcus wondered how this small child had made it 4 blocks through this storm alone, and felt his respect for his courage grow with each step. The building Leo led him to was old and worn, in a part of downtown that had seen better days. They climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs that smelled of cooking and damp, and finally Leo stopped in front of a door marked 3C. He knocked in a pattern, 3 quick taps followed by 2 slower ones. "It's me, Mama," he called. "I found him." The door opened almost immediately, and Marcus saw Amanda Foster for the first time in 3 years. He barely recognized her. The efficient, neatly dressed assistant he remembered had been transformed into a woman holding on by a thread, painfully thin, face gaunt and pale, leaning heavily against the doorframe. But her eyes were the same, intelligent and determined, and they filled with tears when she saw Marcus standing there with her son. "Mr. Callahan," she whispered. "You came? I wasn't sure. I told Leo you would, but I wasn't sure." "Amanda," Marcus said, shock clear in his voice. "What's happened to you?" Amanda's smile was sad. "A lot. Please come in." Marcus stepped into the small apartment, and what he saw made his heart ache. It was clean but sparse. A small Christmas tree in the corner with handmade ornaments and a few twinkling lights, drawings taped to the refrigerator, a worn teddy bear on the threadbare couch. Amanda closed the door and moved slowly to sit, every movement careful. Leo immediately went to her side, and she wrapped her arm around her son with visible relief. "I'm sorry to ask you here like this," Amanda began. "I know it's strange and probably concerning, but I didn't know what else to do. And time—" Her voice broke. "Time is something I don't have much of anymore." Marcus sat down across from them, his wet clothes forgotten. "Tell me what's going on, please." The story that emerged over the next 30 minutes was heartbreaking. Amanda explained that shortly after leaving Callahan Industries, she'd been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She'd left because she couldn't keep up with treatment and work, and she wanted every moment with Leo. Her parents were gone. Leo's father had never been in the picture. "I've been fighting for 3 years, she said quietly. "I've done everything the doctors recommended, but it spread, and they've told me I probably have 6 months, maybe less. My biggest fear isn't dying, Mr. Callahan. It's leaving Leo alone." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You don't have any family who can take care of him?" Amanda shook her head. "No one. When I'm gone, the state will put him in foster care. And he's such a special little boy. He deserves more than to be shuffled through the system, to lose everything familiar when he's already lost so much." "So why did you send him to find me?" Marcus asked gently. "I don't understand what you think I can do." Amanda looked at him with those determined eyes. "Because I worked for you for 2 years, Mr. Callahan. I saw the kind of man you are, how you treated people, how you valued loyalty and compassion even in business. And I know," she paused, gathering courage, "I know you lost your wife 5 years ago. I know you don't have children, and I thought, maybe, just maybe, you might consider taking care of Leo when I'm gone." The request hit Marcus like a physical blow. Amanda was asking him to adopt her son, a child he'd just met, a responsibility he'd never planned for. "Amanda," he began, voice uncertain. That's an enormous thing to ask." "I know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "If you say no, I understand. But I had to ask. I had to try. Because when I think about who I'd want raising my son, who I'd want teaching him about the world, I think of you." Marcus looked at Leo, who was watching him with those serious blue eyes. The boy had been quiet, but now he spoke. "I'd be good," he said softly. "I promise I'd be really good. I wouldn't be any trouble." And in that moment, Marcus felt his carefully controlled world shift on its axis. He thought about his empty apartment, the years since Sarah died, the dreams of children he'd buried with her. Now here was this brave little boy who'd waited alone in a blizzard because his mother believed Marcus was the one person who could help. "Can I ask you something, Leo?" Leo nodded. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Leo thought about it seriously. "I want to build things like big bridges or spaceships. Mom says I'm good at fixing stuff." "That's a wonderful dream," Marcus said, voice thick. He looked at Amanda. "If I agree to this, I need to know everything. Medical information, legal documentation, what you need from me to make this work." Amanda's face transformed, hope lighting it from within. I mean I'll do it," Marcus said. And even as the words left his mouth, he knew they were right. Terrifying, life-changing, completely unplanned, but right. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. I don't know the first thing about raising a child, but I can promise Leo will have everything he needs and that he'll know he's loved and valued." Amanda broke down completely, sobbing with relief. Leo looked confused at first, then understanding. Then his small face broke into a huge smile. "Really?" he asked. "You'll really take care of me when Mama goes to heaven?" Marcus nodded, unable to trust his voice. Leo slipped off the couch, walked over, looked up at Marcus, then crawled onto his lap, wrapped his small arms around his neck and whispered, "Thank you." Marcus held him, this tiny person who just changed his entire life, and felt tears on his own cheeks for the first time since Sarah's funeral. The next 6 months were the hardest and most meaningful of Marcus's life. He moved Amanda and Leo into his apartment, hired the best lawyers, learned bedtime routines, how to make animal-shaped pancakes, how to be a dad. Amanda died on a quiet Tuesday morning in May, with Marcus and Leo beside her. Her last words to Marcus were, "Thank you for giving me peace." Her last words to Leo were, "I love you, my brave boy. Be kind and strong." The adoption was finalized 2 weeks later. Marcus Callahan became legally responsible for Leo Foster, and Leo became Leo Callahan. 5 years later, Marcus stood watching Leo on stage at his elementary winter concert, waving when his son spotted him in the crowd. Walking home that night, Leo slipped his hand into Marcus's. "Dad," he said, the word that still made Marcus's heart swell. "Do you ever think about that night in the blizzard when I found you?" "All the time," Marcus answered. "Me too," Leo said. "I was so scared, but Mom was sure you'd help us. She said you had a good heart, and she was right." Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. "Your mother was a remarkable woman. She gave me the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. She gave me you." "I think it was a gift for both of us," Leo said wisely. "Mom gave us each other, and that was exactly what Amanda Foster had done. In her final months, facing death with courage, she'd given her son a future and given Marcus a reason to live fully again. Years later, when Leo was grown and building the bridges he'd always dreamed of, he would tell people about the night he sat on snowy steps waiting for a stranger, believing with a child's faith that help would come. He'd talk about his mother's courage and his father's kindness, about how love can create families in the most unexpected ways. And Marcus would look at his son with pride and remember the blizzard night when a little boy changed his life forever, when he learned that sometimes the greatest plans are the ones we never make, that asking for help isn't weakness, but strength, that trusting someone with what matters most is an act of faith, and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply say yes. Marcus said yes to a dying woman's desperate request, and in doing so, he found his way back to life, to hope, to family. He became a father to a boy who needed him, and discovered that in saving him, Leo had saved him too. That's what love does. It transforms strangers into families. It turns endings into beginnings. And even in the darkest storms, it shows us the way home. This is Emotion Waves. If this story touched you, share it, feel it, live it. Because sometimes, all it takes is one yes to change everything.